What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Show brought to you by DFO. I am Josh. I am riding solo again today. AD is trying to adult and work. I will be taking you through this 11-game slate. It's a very interesting slate. Most of the games are early tonight, which is nice. Although the two late games are pretty interesting. Dallas at Colorado, Chicago at Vegas. So there might be some late hammer ownership there. Also, there's some big GPPs on DraftKings today. We got the $33 line change, and then there's a super goal on FanDuel. I think both $33. I think the one on FanDuel is $15,000 the first. The one on DK is $20,000 the first. So I will take you through all 11 games, share my thoughts, take any questions, and let's get right to it. First game of the night, we have the Arizona Coyotes traveling to the Islanders to face the Islanders. The top line for the Isles are definitely in play tonight. They're one of my favorite plays. Just from you take salary out of it, I think they're one of my favorite plays tonight. And they're not even that expensive. So I think they're one of the top plays for me tonight. They're relatively inexpensive. I don't really like them on the blue line, but if you want to make it four-man stack, you use Letty. They're only $16,900 to stack, so you definitely can. You don't have to get super creative to fill out your lineup. I also like the second line. If you're going to use a couple of the expensive lines, like if you want to use Pittsburgh, you want to use Dallas, you want to use Tampa Bay, you want to use Edmonton, teams like that. I mean, one of the spots you can save salary is the second line, which is Barzal, Bolivier, and Josh Bailey. I think they're in a good spot tonight as well. They let you pay up for the expensive lines. I guess, is that right? It looks like Ryan Pulock is a winger, listed as a winger on DK tonight, which is weird. So you can't use him on D. So I'm not really sure I have any interest. I mean, you can use Letty, 4,200, Boychuk, 3,900. I mean, there's better options across the way. On the other side of the puck, on the Coyotes side, the Islanders, again, aren't very good defensively. The top line is inexpensive. Derek Stepan, Max Domi, and Clayton Keller. Avery, come here. On the blue line, Oliver Ekman-Larsson's insanely cheap at $4,300. Jason Demers still $3,200 on the top power play. You can go there. You want to use Tobias Reeder, you can, $3,300 on the second line. Christian Dvorak sees power play 2-time. I think you can look there if you really want to save salary. In terms of the goalies in tonight's game, Luis Domingue, $6,800. I really don't have interest there. Islanders too good offensively at home. Yaroslav Halak at $8,100. Seems expensive for me. He played great against the Rangers, but if you want to go, like BVP and MLB, he crushes the Rangers. I don't know if I can trust Halak at $8,100, despite the good matchup. If you want to pay up for him in the GPP, sure. I think I would avoid him in cash games. So moving on to the second game of the night, we have the Anaheim Ducks traveling to Philadelphia to face the Flyers. I believe Hampus Lindholm is back for the Ducks, which will boost their blue line. Neither of these teams really interest me on this slate. There's better options. Again, I'm not a huge Ducks guy, but they're middle of the road for me. You want to use Raquel. I believe Getzlaf is back. I mean, he's pricey at $7,000, and he hasn't been very productive. I think he's not 100% yet. You can, but The blue line is more where I'm looking for the Ducks. You want to use Montour at 4,100. Lindholm coming back at 3,500 is okay. Manson at 3,500 is okay. But I really, with 11 games, I think I have no interest, not no interest, but if I am, say, max entering the forecheck on DK 20 lineups, I may only have, one lineup with both the Ducks and the Flyers. And that's not to say I do have interest in John Gibson at 7,500. I think, again, like I mentioned in the last show, the Flyers are playing on. Yeah, it is a nice pullover. I can pop the collar if you want. I do have interest in Gibson tonight at, I'll pop the collar for my boy Perry. It kind of now looks like I'm choking myself. So Gibson at 7,500 interests me because, like I said on the last show, the Flyers are playing on the top line is shooting an incredibly high percentage, and eventually it's going to come back to earth. So Gibson is in play for me in tournaments at 7,500. Brian Elliott is 8,000, which is expensive. I also would consider him in GPPs. I would have won him in cash. Again, if you've ever tuned into the show, I do not like spending up for goalie in GPP, but I can make a case for Elliott. On the Flyer side, I believe, the top line, if you want to chase points, it feels like it's chasing points to me. So Gibson's one of my, not my favorite, but he's up there for me for goalie plays. So my interest in Philly is minimal. If you want to use the Couturier, Giroux, Voracek line, okay, because the Ducks are still kind of banged up. Okay, you want to use Fippola and Simmons because they correlate on the power play with Ghost. Ghost is 5,900. Sure, you can go there. I don't mind, but again, my interest in this game is pretty low. So let's go to the third game of the night, which is going to see a ton of ownership. It's the Edmonton Oilers traveling to Pittsburgh to face the Penguins. Penguins are terrible defensively. They don't have much depth past the top two lines. The problem that I have with Pittsburgh is their power play is over 3 even strength lines, and that annoys me. So what you can do with the Penguins tonight is, if you want to stack the power play, you can do it. I've put a few lineups together with it just to see if it works. You can go Crosby, Malkin, Hornquist, Kessel, Letang. It's pricey. You have to get a little bit creative to finish out your lineup. I like stacking the power play tonight. Edmonton's PK has been awful. I believe this game has a very high over-under. If you don't want to stack a power play, which is totally understandable, I think my lean tonight in terms of lines would be the Malkin line, because the Crosby line is going to be out against McDavid line probably most of the game. Just make sure to check out AD's line matching article just to confirm that I'm not an idiot. Also, the top line doesn't correlate with the top power play. The second line has more correlation there. Obviously, if you can afford Letang, go for it. If not, I believe the second power play defenseman is Ole Mata. He is moderately priced at 4,200. I think you can go there. In terms of goalies, Matt Murray, 7,800. I mean, if you're going to full stack like the power play and want to correlate that with Matt Murray, okay. I mean, that's usually how you should do it. I feel like this game is going to be like a 5-4, 6-3 type of game now. So if you don't think Pittsburgh's going to win, you can go other ways than Murray. No real interest in the third line. So let's go to the Edmonton side. Obviously, the top line of Edmonton's in play tonight. They're one of my favorite plays as well. They're actually relatively cheap at a little over 17,000. McDavid's pricey, 8,100, but Pat Maroon is cheap, and Yamamoto is also cheap. That lets you get in Clefbaum on the blue line. I think he's an elite play in any format tonight. Only 5,200. If you want to use the second line, Nugent Hopkins. They're probably gonna have the Malkin line, I would think, or the third line. I'm not sure, but Nugent Hopkins, Lucic, and Strome. I think Strome's a viable play. He's been playing much better. If you need to save some salary, Darnell Nurse, 3,100, I think, is in play tonight. Talbot at 7,100 is a frightening play. If Edmonton can stay out of the box, you want to take a chance on Talbot. He's going to be extremely low owned in GPPs tonight. I would not use him in cash, but if you want to, get a little frisky in a GPP, I think he has a high ceiling. His floor is really low, but I feel like Pittsburgh's going to have some ownership tonight as usual. So if you want to leverage the field a bit, you know what you're signing up for. He could easily get lit up. So let's move on to the next game. We got the Tampa Bay Lightning traveling to Carolina, to face the Hurricanes. This game is interesting for me because the top line of Tampa Bay has just been unreal, unreal. But they're extremely expensive tonight. I think they're the second most expensive line to stack as a whole besides Dallas. And Carolina is a good defensive team. So you saw what they did. They didn't shut down Dallas, but the top line wasn't as explosive as they could have been. So my interest in Tampa Bay 1 is going to be not as high as, you can plug and play them against. I think they're almost to the point where they're matchup proof, but Carolina is one of the best teams defensively. I think they have a shot to contain. They might give up a couple, like 1 or 2 goals, but I don't think you're going to see 4-point nights from Kucherov and Stamkos again, like they've been doing on the regular. So if you want to use them, okay. I won't have as much exposure as I normally do to them, just because I think there's better spots, less expensive than attacking a good defensive team in Carolina. Hedman is really pricey, 6,100. Has been that good. He's been okay, but I don't think he's deserving of his price tag. I think the play for Tampa Bay, if you're going to go there, is Sergachev. It's 3,800. But again, you want to use the second line of Point, Palat, and Yanni Gourde. Okay, I think, again, I don't think it's the best matchup, but if you need some salary savings, that's a line you can go to. I believe Carolina mixed up their lines. You'd have to check the LA faceoff for that. I don't have too much interest in the Hurricanes tonight. Vasi has been excellent. Tampa Bay is good defensively. You want to use Skinner as a one-off because he shoots. Those are the type of guys you want to look for, to one-off shooters. You want to use Slavin on the blue line at 3,600, okay. But my interest in them isn't very high tonight. There are better options. I think they're more middle of the road for me. It's not even like they provide salary relief unless you're using the third line, which I think there's better spots. Darling at 7,100. I think as a GPP flyer, I wouldn't go out of my way to plug him in if you're down to 7,100 and need a goalie. I think there is some decent options, Darling being one of them, but I don't think he's one of my top options tonight. And Vasi at 8,200, you can make a case to pay up for him tonight. Again, I'm probably not going to do it, just personal preference, but he is in play tonight. So let's move on to the next game. We got the Detroit Red Wings traveling to the Buffalo Sabres. What Buffalo team is going to show up? They were at home against the Canucks. They looked absolutely terrible. And then they went into Boston, and they looked great. So what Buffalo Sabres team is going to show up tonight? I think the Eichel line is definitely in play tonight. I think they're one of my favorite plays tonight. I don't think Detroit's any good. Their defense is pretty poor. I mean, it's better that DeKaiser is out, unless I think he might be back though. Let me see. No, he's still out. So I mean, Detroit's defense is a little bit better without him. I'm still not, ecstatic about it. I don't really believe in Jimmy Howard anymore. I mean, I don't really believe in that team in general. So I'm definitely going to have some Eichel exposure. You want to use Ristolainen on the blue line, 5,000, sure. If you need some salary relief, you can go with my boy Marco Scandella, 2,900. He's been seeing over 20 minutes a night. He's actually found the score sheet somehow the past few games, but I think at 2,900 he provides decent value. If you really need to dig deep, don't expect like 8 DK points, but if you get 2.5, 3 out of them, I think you'd be good with that. Depth lines, you want to use the second line, you want to use O'Reilly. The O'Reilly line, sure. I think, the O'Reilly line is going to be out with the top against Zetterberg, so they kind of cancel each other out. So, my interest here is most, at least from the Buffalo side, in the Eichel line. From the Detroit side, Buffalo is terrible defensively. You saw what happened the past few games. You want to have some, for me, I think the Zetterberg line for me would be my top choice. They're fairly cheap. The Zetterberg line. If you want to go with Larkin and Mantha, I'm not going to tell you no. I think they're a good GPP option. I wish Marty Ferk would move up to the second line, but Jeff Blashill's a donkey fucker. So on the blue line, you want to use Mike Green, 5,500, okay. Trevor Daley, see some power play time, 3,600, okay. If you want to chase points, you can use Nick Jensen at 3,100, but I don't recommend that. All in all, I don't think I'm going to have too much interest in the goalies tonight. I have no interest in Jimmy Howard at 7,600. Actually, I don't have interest in him. But if you're going to use the Red Wings and you want Jimmy Howard because, Buffalo puts up a bunch of shots and Evander Kane shoots from all over the ice, not very high danger scoring option or shots from him. Howard can see a bunch of shots. I can, see it as a GPP play. I'm not going there, but, you can make a case because Buffalo just shoots the puck from all over the ice. Robin Lehner, 7,300. I love Lehner. Just, I don't know if I'm going to use him tonight. Like, I love him as the player. I don't love him in this spot tonight. He's 7,300. Detroit, I don't think is very good. But again, Buffalo gives up a ton of high danger scoring chances per 60. It's not something you want to target. But again, if Lehner stands on his head, he can see like 35 shots. If he lets in 2 and gets the win, I mean, that's pretty solid for 7,300. Again, not a preferred play for me. I might have 1 or 2 shares, but all in all, I think I'm going to look elsewhere. Moving on to the next game of the night, we have the Florida Panthers traveling to Montreal to face the Canadiens. I don't know what the hell is going on with the Canadiens. Price looks broken. They mixed up their lines. They have Galchenyuk down again. They have Lehkonen down again. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, it's a disaster. Carey Price, 7,200. Okay. You got to figure at some point he's going to turn it around, and you'd rather get him at 7,200 before he turns it around and all of a sudden is 8,400 again. So, I think Carey Price is a streaming GPP option. I'm not sure what I want to do with the Canadiens on offense, though. Drouin and Pacioretty, you want to use them with a mini with Shea Weber. I think that's a place to go. Gallagher and Cash, 4,100, okay. until they can show that they have any type of consistency, I'm going to fade Victor Meat or Mate. I call him Meat, but I think it's Mate. 3,400, okay. Shea Weber's cheap, 5,300. I think he can, provide some value. Jeff Petrie, if you're getting a little funky, sure. All in all, if I'm going to use the Canadiens, it's going to be, Drouin, Pacioretty, Weber, or, stack the second line, but that really doesn't interest me too much. Even though Florida gives up a ton of points, but I think because of what they did to their lines, I think, Reimer at 7,200 coming off a shutout, he's in play. I mean, he might see some ownership just based off recency bias, but I think he's a decent streaming GPP option as well. On the Florida side, I like the top line. Barkov, Huberdeau, and Dadonov. I think they're fairly cheap, a little over 16,000. I think you can go there, especially if you think Carey Price is broken, which he has shown no indication that he's rebounding. Like Vinny Trocheck tonight, 6,200. I think he's in play. I mean, you can correlate that with the power play. You want to use Ekblad, Yandel on the blue line. Ekblad or Yandel, I mean. I think the second line's in play for me too, with Verbata and I think it's McGinn. Also, if you need some salary savings, Owen Tippett, 3,400. He shoots the puck a lot. If you really need it, I think there's better options down that low, around 3,300. You can also make a case if you're down to the utility at 3,400, you're better off putting a D-man in the utility. But I don't mind Tippett. So let's move on to the LA Kings against the Ottawa Senators. You saw what happened last night. It looked like the Kings finally showed that they're hurting a little bit without Jeff Carter. Now they're on a back-to-back. They're not facing Craig Anderson. It looks like it's going to be Mike Condon in the net, 7,100. I think he's a decent GPP option tonight. Hold on, what did I do here? There we go. I think he's a decent GPP option tonight. Especially with Carlson being back, I think they're a little bit better defensively. And again, my rule is I don't like using teams back to back on the road, so I think Condon's in a decent spot. From the Senator standpoint, it looks like they moved Burrows up to the top line. I don't know what Mike Hoffman has to do to move up to the top line. Maybe he has to kill somebody. Maybe he's sleeping with the coach's wife and the coach, I don't know. He's just in the doghouse. But Broussard, Stone, I guess Burrows, with Bobby Ryan out, he's cheap. You can put him in. Allows you to fit Carlson. I think he's a good play tonight, 7,300. I wouldn't go out of my way to squeeze him in. Like, I wouldn't, destroy my lineup just to fit Carlson in. But if you can fit him, do it. You want to use Hoffman as a one-off, cool. I'm always okay with a Mike Hoffman one-off. He shoots the puck a lot. He's on the power play. Minimal interest in the second line. Turris, the Turris line. I mean, you can use him. I think Turris correlates on the power play. You just have to check DFO for that. But my preferred would be Broussard, Stone, Burrows, and I hope maybe you can go like Stone or Broussard, Stone, Hoffman for power play correlation, and maybe during the game Hoffman gets moved up, but I don't know what he has to do to get moved up. It's just ridiculous. On the Kings side, again, I'm not a huge proponent especially on a big slate of using teams on the back-to-back on the road. If I am going to use them, maybe I'll use Jake Muzzin, 4,500 on the blue line. Other than that, I don't really have too much interest. You want to use Kopitar? Sure. Not a huge fan of the Kings tonight. Kempe's been playing good, 3,700. You need some salary relief. You can, stream him. But again, for me, I'm probably more than likely going to fade the Kings tonight. I have not gotten to the Wild and the Canucks. So you are good. I will be getting there in 2 games. So again, in net, Quick went last night, so it's probably going to be Darcy Kemper tonight, which would just bump my interest in the Ottawa top line. I don't really have too much interest in Kemper tonight. Again, Condon is in play for me, just because the Kings are on a back-to-back. So, and he's 7,100. I think he's a decent GPP option. So let's move on to the next game tonight. We have the Calgary Flames traveling to Nashville to face the Predators. I have some interest in the Nashville top line. Forsberg, Johansson, Arvidsson. I think, on a big slate, they're definitely in play. I think they're not in my top 5, but, there's 22 teams playing tonight, probably 60, 70 actual lines, not including the fourth lines. I think they'll probably be, in my top 10. Even though the Flames blue line on paper improved, they still haven't been very good defensively. Mike Smith has been, he's been good. He's had great games. He's had poor games. He's 7,300 tonight. I think he actually might get ownership because of that price. If that's the case, I do want some Nashville, although Nashville probably will see some ownership. Forsberg is expensive at 7,100 on DraftKings, but the rest of the line is cheap. Johansson's 5,300, Arvidsson's 5,900. Definitely preferred play. Roman Josi, 6,400 on the blue line. If you can't fit him, PK Subban at 6,200, or Matthias Ekholm, 3,800. Would be my top 3 choices on the blue line for them. The depth lines for Nashville don't really interest me too much. You want to use Hartnell? Not really my thing. But I would assume you definitely have to check AD's line matching article. I didn't get a chance to read it before I came on here. It depends who the Nashville top line is on tonight. I would assume they're going to be on. Actually, I'm not sure. Probably the Gaudreau line or the third line, but I think I want some interest. I have some interest from the Calgary side in their first and second lines. I think my preferred play would be the 3M line, just because they're so much cheaper. It allows you to get a more expensive stack in, which is Backlund, Frolik, and Kachuk. You want a 4-man stack at TJ Brody, 4,800. Dougie Hamilton, 4,400. You want to spend up for Giordano, 5,600. Okay, I think the other two are better options. In net, I do have interest in Pekka Rinne at 7,800. He's been great, which is surprising. I guess he's finally healthy. He's in play for me. Mike Smith, if you're not using the Predators, I think is an okay play. I think he's going to get some ownership, though, just because he's been up around 8,000. He's been pretty good. He's in play for me for GPPs. Yeah. Let's get to the next game of the night. We have the Vancouver Canucks traveling to Minnesota to face the Wild. The Wild are still banged up, but Vancouver is terrible. I believe the Koivu line is definitely in play tonight. Koivu, Zucker, and Granlund. I really like that line tonight. They're definitely in play for me. You want to use, if you can afford Suter, you go ahead. You want to use Spurgeon. Okay, 4,900. You want to use the Eric Stahl line, I think, with Chris Stewart. You can. I prefer definitely the top line. Top line for Minnesota, I think, is the most viable option. They are one of my top options tonight. I think people will stay away just because of injury concerns, and I get it. But, I mean, the top line might see decent ownership, but everyone else on the team should not, if you want to get creative and use, Chris Stewart, who's, going bananas. He's still only 3,500. They're probably, let's see, Devin Dubnyk is 8,100. I love Dubnyk as a goalie. Again, I'm not, and the Canucks are bad, but I don't know if I can justify spending 8,100 for Dubnyk just because after that top line, it gets a little suspect for the Wild. They're probably going to win. Anders Nielsen's in net for Vancouver, and I have no interest there. That bumps the top line for me, definitely. If you want to use Dubnyk GPPs, okay. I don't think I'm going to go there. Just the depth worries me. Excuse me. The depth worries me for Minnesota. Until they get a little bit more healthy, I think I'm going to avoid using the Wild goaltenders. On the Vancouver side, again, they're unbelievably cheap. The most expensive center is Horvat at 4,000. I like that line. Horvat, Barchi, and Brock Bozier. I think, they're in play if you need a cheap line. Just read AD's line matching article. If they're up against the Koivu line, I'll have less interest. But if Koivu's out against the Sedins, then definitely want some Horvat, Barchi, and Bozier. And Del Zotto's in play for me for sure, 3,900. He, as a hockey player, he's been taking a lot of bad penalties, but he does block a lot of shots, does take a lot of shots. He's on the power play, 3,900. I think he is definitely in play for me. Again, no interest in Anders Nielsen. I don't know. I like Minnesota's top line too much. If you're not using Minnesota's top line, you want to, punt goalie Anders Nielsen. Okay, in a GPP, okay. I don't think you have to go there, but if you need the salary, I prefer Semyon Varlamov at 6,900, which is, kind of frightening coming out of my mouth. But again, I think there's better options, just a couple $100 more at like 7,300, 74, 75. So, but if you really have to go there, Nielsen is scary, but after the Minnesota top line, it is a bit funky, so you can make a case for it. So let's move on to the second to the last game of the night. We got the Dallas Stars traveling to the Avalanche to face traveling to Colorado to face the Avalanche. Dallas 1 is the most expensive line of the night, a little over 21,000 to stack. I think they're in a great spot tonight. Even with Varlamov in net, who can steal a game, the Avalanche are crumbling back to being the Avalanche after a hot start. Gabriel Landeskog is with Matt Duchene. For their price, I might have some interest there, but for me, the target's going to be Dallas 1, Ben Sagan, and Radulov. You can use Klingberg at 6,100. You're going to have to use a very cheap second line. I think you can do it with the second line of the Islanders. You can use it with Vancouver too. There's ways to do it, even if you four-man stack. If you want to save some salary, you can use Essel Lindell. He's on the top pair, 3,400. Stephen Johns, if you want to chase some points, 3,200. But for me, those are the only the two defenders in play for me. The way it just looks like sometimes the Avs just give up in the middle of a game. So for me, Ben Bishop, even though they're on the road and he's 8,000, is in play for me in all formats. I think that's somewhere you got to go. You want to use the second line to get exposure to the Stars at much lower ownership. I'm okay with that too. Looks like they flipped the positions a little bit. Yeah, Spezza's now a winger. He's 3,900, which is insanely cheap, which you get exposure to that game. I mean, he hasn't been playing a ton of minutes at even strength, but Janmark, Spezza, and I think who's with him? Richie, 3,500. I mean, that line's insanely cheap. Gives you exposure to the game at a lower ownership. Again, on the Colorado side, I don't mind Duchesne with Landeskog. They're very cheap. You can use them with Barry or Eric Johnson. And let's get to Semyon Varlamov here. Okay, he's 6,900. The Stars are going to have ownership because they always do. I think he is in play in GPPs just because he is a very good goalie when he's healthy. He looks healthy. He can steal a game. If you're not using the Stars and you want to leverage the field a bit, I think he is the leverage goalie tonight at 6,900. Just, he can, I don't know if, the thing is, you don't think the Avs are going to win, but you hope maybe they can pull out like a 3-2 victory somehow. But for 6,900, if he sees like 38 shots and saves 2 goals, or lets in 2 goals, what's that, 7? That's like still 5. That's still 5 points, 5.2 on DK. I think you can go there, especially he's probably going to be very low owned. If I'm not using the Stars, I think I'm going to have a little bit of Varlamov. I think he is the leverage goalie tonight. So let's go to the last game of the slate. We got the Chicago Blackhawks traveling to Las Vegas to face the Golden Knights. The Knights are on their 39th goalie of the season. Oscar Dansk, I believe, is in net tonight. He's like 6,500 on DK. I don't know too much about him. I mean, he did come he's from Sweden. He comes from a good school, but Chicago is definitely my preferred play tonight. You want to use the Taze line, you can use the Kane line, you can use the power play. There's many ways to attack. I just have a slight lean to the Kane line if I'm going to use them. If I'm going to use the Hawks, I don't like really using the Taze line. I won't fault you if you do. I think they're a great play tonight as well. I just prefer using Patrick Kane. On the blue line, Keith and Seabrook don't interest me too much, but if you're going to use them and you want to make it a 4-man stack, you can use Keith or Seabrook. Okay. Not overly exciting to me. In net, Corey Crawford, 7,900. Not a huge fan of Corey Crawford. If you're on him and you're going to use, the Hawks, I'm not going to talk you off of it. But personally, I think Vegas can score in this game. Oscar Dansk is 6,800. Crawford and GVP, okay. Even in cash, it's okay. I mean, it's not somewhere I'm going to go. I don't really like Corey Crawford too much. Maybe that's a bias that will cost me money, but again, I don't have a huge interest in him. In terms of Las Vegas, they're definitely middle of the road for me. I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to use them. I'd want some exposure to James Neal if I did. I think, or Riley Smith, or Eakin, Neal, Perron is probably my preferred choice. Again, they're middle of the road for me. I'm not going to go out of my way to put them in. They are cheap. Neal is 6,500, but the rest of the line is cheap. Let you get, almost anything else you want. You want to, use Tooch. It's 3,600. His time on ice worries me a little bit. On the blue line, Nate Schmidt, 3,800. Kyle Miller, 3,500. Okay. Their defense doesn't really excite me too much. Again, I'm not really going to have too much. Corey Crawford, Oscar Dansk, 6,800. If you, again, between him, Nielsen, and Varlamov, I think I'm going to go Varlamov most of the time there. You want to, go crazy and use Dansk. Okay. You know what you're signing up for. So, that covers all 11 games. Make sure to check out Daily Faceoff for any line changes, power play combinations, confirmed goalies, all that. We also have good premium content, which you really need to check out. It's definitely beneficial on big slates. We have the cash optimizer if you play only cash. We have a GPP optimizer if you play GPPs. You can use both. Projections from Emmanuel Perry, the guy behind Corsica. It's really good stuff. We also have a premium chat that I'm in every night from 5:45 to 6:45. And going forward, I believe sometime this week, Adam's line matching article is going to be part of the premium package. So if you sign up for premium, you will get the optimizers, you'll get projections, you'll get AD's article, you will get chat with me and AD. Definitely worth a sign up. So I'm going to sign off here. We'll see you tomorrow, or we'll see you tonight in chat. Again, you can always find me at Twitter at JRH002DFS. So we'll see you tomorrow. Hopefully you're tweeting at me with some winning screenshots tonight. Good luck, everybody.